Hi guys, my name's Julia Cole and I am one of the current graduates on E.ON's Science and Engineering Excellence Scheme. As part of the scheme, E.ON's asked me to do a short series of blogs that will look at the graduate scheme from application all the way to when you finish. So one of the first things that they'd like me to talk about is how I found out about the role. Um, My journey at E.ON is a little bit different to other people's. I actually was an undergraduate before I became a graduate, but the application process is just very similar. So what happened with me was that I was studying chemical engineering, and my degree tended to move graduates into sort of the oil and gas industry. And I wasn't particularly sure that was where I wanted to go, so I was sort of hunting around elsewhere anyway. I went to the University of Nottingham, and they have a really good careers department, and the department are always actively looking for years in industries or any sort of graduate role for their students to apply to. My inbox one day sort of had a bunch of emails from the careers department, and one of them was advertising for an undergraduate placement at E.ON Technologies at Ratcliffe Power Station, which is just outside Nottingham, so it was already very close. So I saw this placement that was being advertised at E.ON, and to be honest, I always thought that E.ON was an energy provider and they didn't really have a graduate scheme or any sort of recruitment in general. And the placement was in carbon capture and technology, which at the time was a really innovative technology that was sort of being in the stages of research and development and demonstration. For me, this was really interesting because it's not very often that you come across placements which are in such a new area. They can be very structured and sort of, you know, this is what you'll be doing for a year and this is what we want our end product to be. But this placement seemed very open. It was sort of, you can take it where you want to. What was more interesting for me was that once I had actually considered applying for the role, I started to do some research into E.ON as a company, and the amount of different technologies they sort of have in their portfolio was a real big draw for me, because it meant that I wasn't limiting myself to just one oil and gas process as such. I was enabling myself to do a bunch of different things that I probably wouldn't be able to do in other types of industry. What was even more important for me once I looked into applying for this placement was that there was the ability to be fast-tracked onto the graduate scheme. I didn't know at the time, but this isn't always the case for years in industry. Sometimes you have to reapply a couple of years later, or there just isn't a graduate scheme for you to move into, and it's more of a senior position that you have to apply for. If there is a clear sort of path for you within a company, it's really easy to kind of align your development along with that. And the way that E.ON looked to be set up, it seemed like a really good opportunity. So when I eventually applied for the placement, it was a submit a CV and a covering letter, and then I was called in for an interview, which went really well, and I was successful in getting my undergraduate placement. And then obviously I did my year in industry, which I really loved, and I had a great time working at E.ON for that year. But at the end of it, I was given the option to fast track onto the graduate scheme, and that was kind of 11 months in, so very near to the end. And that's when I found out that I would be going to the assessment centre, which is obviously quite daunting, but at the same time, it was really good sort of experience to go through. So just to kind of sum up my first blog or vlog, it in terms of when you're applying for a graduate scheme or an undergraduate scheme, it's always really good to kind of do a bit of research into what you want to do and what the company you're applying to does. Because sometimes you come across companies that you might never even think of applying to, and actually they really relate to what you want to do as a career. So thanks, and I think next time we'll talk a bit more about sort of the assessment centre and how it went and what I did to prepare for it. Thanks.